James Schneider. Has it been a tough week to be described as the former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn?
No, why would it be?
Well, why? Go on, come on, James. I've never met you before. You're doing this very good, fake naive thing. You know why it would be a hard week to be represented. You're like his representative on Earth on political shows, aren't you? Jeremy Corbyn doesn't do anything. People come to you to say, what would Jeremy Corbyn think in this situation? That's not why I have you here.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's perfectly capable of speaking for himself as he has this week. I'm speaking for myself, and you can listen to what I say and see what you think.
But at the Labour Party conference, obviously, he was doorstepped by all of the reporters wanting to know if he would condemn Hamas. Do you felt he did it in the sufficiently strong terms?
I'll just say what I would have said and what I have said beforehand, which is that it is easy to condemn atrocities that we have nothing to do with. We have nothing to do with the atrocities committed by Hamas. It is much more difficult to oppose crimes that we are connected to. And we are connected to the war crimes that are carried out now by the Israeli state against the Palestinian people, which they announced that they were going to carry out, because our government is providing them with military support, as it has done for a long time, and is providing with diplomatic cover.
But we wouldn't have to be doing this if those people who were going about their business on Saturday, being at music festivals and having family gatherings, hadn't been startled by men with machine guns arriving in their garden.
Yes, of course, that's horrific. And no one should say that it isn't horrific. And no one should be defending the killing of civilians. But, you know, if we were to look at this from the point of view of where we are currently sitting, right, and what crimes are we connected to and can we have some role in trying to bring an end to? We have a responsibility because we are connected we're sitting here, we're citizens of the UK, and we are involved, therefore, in the horrific, you can describe in the most emotive terms you want, the crimes that are being committed right now in Gaza and will carry on for a very long time. Now, where do you draw the starting point line? Of course, you know, for a cycle of atrocities, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about 2006 and how there's been a siege on Gaza for this period of time. Dawn was talking about what a large percentage of the population of Gaza will have only known that period of time.
But it does sound, Dawn, it sounds a bit like there's an equivalence here. And from where I'm sitting, even with a modicum of knowledge of what's happened over the last few decades, there is no equivalence now.
The way people talk about this, I mean, not just James, I'm not talking James here, but the way people talk about...
Oh, you can, that's why he's here.
Well, I know, but the way people talk about what Hamas have done, they are a terrorist organisation, they are recognised as such. In their charter, they state that the day of judgment, all Jews will be killed. This isn't about Israel, this is not about Palestine, this is about eliminating all Jewish people.
Do you recognise them as a terrorist
There's no but about that.
I recognise that their actions are atrocities that, if we apply a standard definition of terrorism, falls under terrorism.
But do you apply that as definition of terrorism?
Yes, but only consistently. So I think that Israel also carries out terrorist state actions against the Palestinian people in Gaza and is carrying out war crimes under international law. I think these things should be applied...
Do you think those war crimes are happening now, though?
Yes, the war crimes are happening right now. War crimes are happening at this very moment. At collective punishment... Hold on. This is extremely important. Under international law, collective punishment is a war crime. What they have done is to collectively punish 2.3 million people, half of whom are children, for Hamas's atrocities. That is a war crime by definition. Now, that's even without looking at the indiscriminate bombing. That is even without having Netanyahu say that he wants to turn Gaza into...
I'm sorry, James, but you do actually sound like you're making excuses for them.
I'm not making... I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry, but it does sound like that.
Please listen to every word that I'm saying, because I'm not making... I'm not making any excuses. You can't say... In fact, I would I turn it around and say exactly the other way around. I think people are making excuses for these war crimes on the basis of other crimes. I think we should be able to say these atrocities are atrocities and these crimes are crimes.
As I started out, yes, absolutely. And many Israelis, many Jewish people do not agree with what their country is doing. Many Palestinians do not agree with what Hamas are doing. But I can't get my head round when we're talking about Hamas's atrocities, the murders, the beheading of innocent babies in their cots, that there is even a but to that conversation. But Israel have done this, but the world have done this. That there is no but. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Of course, two wrongs don't make a right. The argument that two wrongs make a right is precisely the argument that is being made by our government and Keir Starmer and the front bench of the Labour Party when they are asked, is this a war crime? Do you support this war crime? And they say Israel has every right to defend itself. You do not. You have a right to defend yourself. You have no right whatsoever to commit war crimes against other people.
But they're not condoning the war crimes. They're saying Israel has a right to defend itself.
Oh, yes, they are.
You always put a but in when we're talking about the atrocities, the murders of babies that Hamas have committed.
I guess I am not comfortable with the fact that there are babies now being murdered in Gaza, and I think that's effectively what you're saying.
Yes,
you are saying that two wrongs don't make a right. But what is the alternative, James? Because as Dawn says, the point of this invasion was not to just take back a little land and maybe wave off the Jewish people and say, we'd quite like this land. It is the annihilation of all Jews on the planet. That is clearly the stated aim. So how do you manage that sort of threat?
I'm sorry. I really think that the leap from these atrocities that were committed over the weekend to the wiping out of all Jews, which includes me, by the way, the wiping out of all Jews on earth is a nonsense, and it's a sort of thing, that sort of language helps to clear the path for these, Gaza, a place of 2.2 million people reduced to rubble. Look at the footage from there. Look at the things that are being done to those people there. None of it is correct. None of it is correct. And so the response from Israel should not be to commit war crimes and should not be this disproportionate stuff.
No, of course it should.
And our government and the other governments of the world should be calling for restraint and pushing to return to peace talks, which Israel has not been engaging in since 2014, which the Israeli government, its key figures, for example, its finance minister, Smotrich, has said that Palestinians living in the occupied territories, they have three choices. Permanent subjugation to Israel, they can leave or they can die. This is not a government that is interested in peace, and there needs to be massive outside pressure to put them for...
And Hamas are saying that Israel does not exist, should never exist, and nor should all Jewish people. And James, as you've just said, that includes you. That is actually in their charter, Article 7. Right. They have put that in writing.
Right. And as have very similar things have said members of the Israeli government going the other way, basically denying that the Palestinian people exist. And yet these two groups are the very groups that are going to be required to speak for peace.
Do you not feel that over the last few decades that Israel has tried, I think on about 5 occasions, the famous Camp David meeting with Clinton, that they've tried on multiple occasions to have it pushed back? I might be wrong. Like I say, this is not my area of expertise.
That was 30 years ago, and for the last 20 years, Israel has repeatedly undermined any chance of peace, including those quotes I was reading earlier about supporting the Hamas takeover of Gaza and the undermining of the Palestinian Authority so that they won't have a negotiating partner. And they haven't been in any talks since 2014. And they have government officials who call for the annexation of the occupied territories, and they support the expansion of the illegal settlements, making a Palestinian state de facto impossible. That's what the Israeli ambassador to Britain has said on record in the past as well. So, no, that's not making good efforts towards peace. And again, where do we in Britain and in other countries have a role? We have some influence. We have some influence, and it should be used to say, these illegal settlements are wrong, they are illegal, and they must not happen. You will not have our diplomatic support, you will not have our money, you will not have our military technology, you will not have our bombs and our bullets to carry out your continuing occupation of these people and apartheid, because there can be no long-term peace with the continued occupation, dispossession
but Hamas
of a whole people.
But there is so many vested interests in there not being long-term peace.